I like the idea, so. And
Yep.
we are live, Angel. Let's get after it today. We are back with another episode of 305 Takes. And we don't have any football coming up this weekend, unless you count the AFC Pro Bowl game or the NFL Pro Bowl game, or even, what is it, the Senior Bowl this week for uh, NFL draft hopefuls going into their workouts and stuff in front of teams. So no actual, real, legit NFL games this week, as we're in that in between week before we get into Super Bowl week started on Monday, and we'll have coverage of that all week for you guys starting next week on 305 Takes. But we have a little bit of a different episode today. We're going to be nominating and giving awards for some of the different categories that we have come up for you guys throughout this season. Best play, for example, game of the year, stuff like that. So we're really excited to get right to it. And as always, it's a Football Friday here on 305 Takes. Angel, what are you looking forward to the most in this episode?
Honestly, I think there's like maybe two we can generally have like there's arguments for two categories. Others I feel like it's just personal preference on what they like to see in an NFL game. But man, there's like two categories. We're gonna get to them, and it's gonna be tough. But also, like Miles said, we have the awards, and then we also have to talk about some news of coaches because some coaches got hired during our break time. One I thought was a good hire. The other one I feel like he's in for a world of trouble because just the team he's inheriting is just they're a mess. But is what it is. But let's get to these awards.
Before we get to the awards, we want to give a quick shout out to E2G Sports, the official sponsor here for us over here at 305 Takes. They handle everything behind the scenes for us, for the podcast and the taping and all of that. So we appreciate E2G Sports. You could head over to e2gsports.com for your latest sporting news that you don't get covered here. They have you covered from MLB, NFL, NFL draft updates, NBA. We got some crazy news that broke in the world of the NBA just before me and Angel got on and started recording today. And E2G Sports is very strongly tied in with the Boston sports scene, so I'm sure they'll have some hot takes coming off of the Kyrie Irving trade request. But Angel, let's get straight into our NFL awards segment. So we'll start off the NFL Play of the Year. So me and Angel, we came up with a list of potential nominees for this, and then at the end, after discussing a couple of them, we'll go into the one that we at 305 Takes believe is the play of the year. So our first nominee, the Patriots walk off versus the Jets. This is one that I personally thought should be nominated because of the situation. Because it's not like a punt return is something that is like super crazy, like oh my goodness, I've never seen a punt return before. But it was the fact that it was the fourth quarter, and both offenses had combined to score a magical total of 6 points total between the two. It was 3-3 when Marcus Jones took back this punt to basically walk it off for the New England Patriots against the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it won the game. Essentially, it won the game. It was a walk-off play, and that it's a great play. It's really a great play because that whole day we can argue the Jets defense and the Patriots defense were unbelievable. They both defensive units did everything to win the game. It's just both offenses did everything they did to lose the game. So it's a coin flip, but I know it's obviously a great play, and he was a big factor for them also the whole year for the Patriots. He caught that one touchdown on offense. He has a special teams touchdown. I'm not sure if he got a defensive touchdown this year, but we are talking about the play against the Jets, and it was awesome because it was against a division rival, which makes it much more value to it, and it's probably against their arch rival, the Jets. Out of all teams, I'm pretty sure the Dolphins are the most competitive they've had over the past like 10 years, if you're not including the Bills over the past 2 years. But I feel like the Jets and the Patriots, there's just so much bad blood there. It had to have been a nice feeling for the Patriots to walk off against them.
And it was 84 yards, which is
Yeah, it's
crazy
not
that
easy.
84 yards for a punt return adds to the level of difficulty, and definitely adds to why we believe it should have been a nomination for play of the year. And um, just a quick note, it was I believe Zach Wilson's second game back
Yeah.
as the starter for the Jets after his knee injury to start off the season, and that was when we were kind of like, what's
Is
up with
he
this guy? Three points in
is he
four
any good?
quarters. That was what kind of started that off, and in a moment full of crazy years, I definitely think that's a deserving nominee. But let's move on to our second nominee, which was Josh Jacobs' 86-yard game-winning touchdown in overtime as his Las Vegas Raiders went on the road to beat the Seattle Seahawks. So this is a nominee for Play of the Year because of the 86-yard touchdown that won it in overtime. Nobody gets the ball back. See you later. We're out of here.
Yeah.
But we also like Jacobs needed some type of recognition for this game because he generated 303 total yards from scrimmage. He was just the 10th player since 1940 to reach 300 plus yards in a single game in the NFL.
Bro, that was it has honestly, if it wasn't for the Nets play that we're gonna mention, I would vote for this as play of the year. Just for the simple fact it won the game. Just like the one against the Patriots, well, the one the Patriots had against the Jets, it won the game. But this one truly, like, once Jacob scored and got found that hole and scored the touchdown, it was over. The Raiders went home happy. Seattle just like their hearts broken. And this was after a back and forth game where you could legitimately make a case that's one of the better games in the NFL. But man, for Josh Jacobs to have such a big day that he did, and then to end it with that walk-off run for the touchdown, I don't know how you can't make that as a nominee for Play of the Year.
It was. I think it had to be Play of the Year, and like you said, it's facing stiff competition in this category because I think the one that we just mentioned with the Marcus Jones basically walk off punt return because there was 10 seconds left on the clock after he scored for the Patriots in that one. But this Josh Jacobs one, just to add to the stats that he had in that game, he was the first Raider player to run for 220 yards plus in a game since Bo Jackson. And for Jacobs, it led to him leading the NFL in rushing yards this year.
Yeah, it
So
helped him
like
a
it was
lot.
a huge accomplishment for a season that he really needed. And I remember going into that game, I had a couple friends asking me what they should do with their lineup because they had Jacobs and he was questionable going into the game. He had a calf injury, and that's the performance he put up following that, following being questionable on the injury report leading into the game. So I think another really, really, really strong nomination for Play of the Year. So let's get to our last nominee that we have for the NFL Play of the Year, and this one is probably going to be a sweeping winner here, as we'll nominate the first kickoff return that Naheem Hyde had in the game versus the Patriots. The first game for the Bills following the Damar Hamlin injury against the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was pretty electric. It was a moment that was magnified by everything that had gone on in the weeks since Hamlin's injury, with the just huge outpour of support that he received with the donations to the charity, the NFL bolding all of the threes on the field to
Yeah.
represent Hamlin, coaches wearing hats, and it was a huge moment. And then the first play we had of that game, Naheem Hines takes it to the end zone for an opening play kickoff return for a touchdown.
Yeah, honestly, that has to take my vote for Play of the Year, just because what was going on around the NFL world with everyone, where essentially they got a game to end after one quarter. Both teams were like they just couldn't play anymore, rightfully so, because after what they just saw on the field. And then for their first game back, first play, Hines takes it all the way back for a touchdown. And no, this is just for play. If not, he has another return that he takes back to the house again. So it's like it was
And the second return was after the Patriots had just scored a touchdown, and the Bills
to
were
take the
actually
lead.
the Bills were actually trailing in that game 17-14
Yep.
when that and the Bills had just turned the ball over to the Patriots before to set up that Patriots scoring drive. And the crazy part to me about that whole thing is that prior to that game, the NFL had 4 kickoffs returned for a touchdown, and Himes had 2 in one game. So he had 2 of the 6 after that game.
Yep.
And
So
he was the first player since 2010 to return 2 kickoffs for a touchdown in the same game.
yep. So that kind of leads me to this: which one are you taking as play of the year?
I think it's Hines, just because of everything that was going on off the field. The fact that Hamlin was, had shown progress, and he was actually tweeting leading up to that game, and then started tweeting as soon as he realized Hines was about to take that back for a touchdown. It was a really, really, really cool moment.
Yeah, I gotta agree. That Hines play, bro, that was you wanted to. We talked about it, just kind of like Arian Foster said. It's a script. You had to have written that down in order for that to happen, and it did happen. So I will have to say the Naheem Hines play to open up against the Patriots, that kickoff return to touchdown, that's going to be my play of the year.
So that's our first award here at 305 Takes, as we have awarded Naheem Hines and his opening kickoff return for a touchdown as the NFL Play of the Year. So let's move on to our next award that we have. And this one, we're trying to add some comedy to what we see every Sunday. And, some things stick out to us, and we bring it on podcast. We make some jokes about it. I've been making Cliff Kingsbury jokes since we started this podcast, so it's nothing new for any of our longtime listeners. But we have a couple moments just from this year. We'll start off with the first one, which again, this one, when I started thinking about it, this was the first one that came to my mind, and honestly, it's the whole play that led up to this moment. It was the Patriots not needing to score. If they just let the clock run out, it would have been going to overtime, but instead, Jacoby Myers decided it was a smart idea to throw the ball back across the field to his quarterback, Mac Jones. And unfortunately for everybody involved, Chandler Jones, absolute beast, catches the ball out of midair right in front of Mac Jones, who just simply becomes debris in the way of Chandler Jones as he takes the ball with 0 seconds left and scores a true walk-off touchdown in shocking fashion.
Bro, that was hands down the funniest moment of the year. When I saw Chandler Jones just put his arm and threw Mac Jones to the ground, bro, that was hilarious to me because I was like, bro, you just got manhandled. And not only was it like during the game, bro, you got manhandled and the guy scored the walk-off touchdown to end the game, which was unbelievable. We could have even said that as play of the year, but because what happened to Mac Jones was so funny, we have to say, bro, this is the funniest moment of the year. I'll be spoiler alert, this already has my vote. This has got my vote. It's hard to top that.
It is hard to top that, but I do, given the circumstances and that it was a quarterback, I think that it brings it down just a little bit, but it was just so shocking that how the whole play added. And I mean, going one-on-one with Chandler Jones seems absolutely frightening. And then to add to the fact that I'm going one-on-one with Chandler Jones after I'm pretty much protected all the time in practice, I never got to get hit. If Chandler Jones were to hit me in a way that is deemed unnecessary, there's a 15-yard penalty to add to that. So I just want to know what the thought process was as Max saw the ball coming from Jacoby Myers back across the field to him, and then what his exact thought was when he saw Chandler Jones's arm start to form that stiff arm.
I think it just went blank. It had
just
to have
blacked
been.
Out.
Yeah. Oh, man. And to be honest, we could kind of say that play is it's truly a summary of the Patriots year. The Ramondre Stevenson doing everything he can. He gives it back to Jacoby Myers. They throw it and they mess it up. And it was just, oh man, that was sad. That was sad.
That was, but it was one of those moments that was so sad that it was funny. I get that Jacoby Myers was very emotional after the game, but it was just sorry, fam, this is too much to not laugh at.
Man, that was good, but we still have some other nominees that we got.
Yeah, that was our first nominee for NFL's funniest moment of the year. The second one was one that I nominated that I still really believe that it happened. It was the much anticipated. It was in a game that had the much anticipated matchup of Tua Tagovailoa traveling to Los Angeles to face Justin Herbert, the quarterback he was picked right in front of in the NFL draft. And the Miami Dolphins could not score a regular offensive touchdown. Instead, It happened because Tyreek Hill picked up a fumble, reversed field, and went to the house with the fumble that he picked up. And that was the only way the Dolphins could score an offensive touchdown in that game.
Yep, and then eventually later on they did score a touchdown with the deep ball, and Tyreek Hill was able to beat someone 1-on-1. But going up to that point, bro, the Dolphins just couldn't move the football. They couldn't move the football. And I think what's also kind of like still crazy about that play, it does show an emphasis, like saying just how fast Tyreek Hill is. Because
Well,
bro,
and
what?
it just a freak he is. So after that play, he became the only player in the Super Bowl era to record a touchdown in each of the following ways: receiving, rushing, kick return, punt return, fumble return.
That's the part of the reason we're saying it's so funny, because it's so funny because it's unbelievable to see. We could generally say we saw all those touchdowns.
All of them, and I remember the part that adds to the hilarity to me is that Tyreek, when you're a fantasy manager and you have Tyreek Hill, you're like, oh my God, yes, 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 I'm gonna get all these yards. But you only got 6 points for Tyreek Hill getting that touchdown.
Yeah,
None of the
you don't get
none of the
anything for the yards.
57 yards that he ran count to your points total as a fantasy owner. So that's what adds to hilarity to it, because it's like a moment people will remember. But if you're a fantasy manager, you're like, oh my goodness, I only got 6. I could have taken those 57 yards. Could have been a 14-point play right there.
Oh, that's the crazy part. But I mean, hey, we have that. But I also think the Nets nominee, I think we kind of tailored that one strictly to a certain fan base or like a big group of haters.
Well, it adds to it. I'll add to my point afterwards. But our next nominee and our last nominee for NFL or NFL's funniest moment of the year is the Detroit Lions going to Lambeau Field in Week 17 of the NFL season with the Packers playing for their playoff lives, a win and they're in, and the Detroit Lions not only win in Lambeau, they beat Aaron Rodgers, keeping him out of the playoffs and potentially end Aaron Rodgers' career, which that's the part that makes it the funniest, because not only is it Aaron Rodgers' third straight loss to the Detroit Lions. Remember, leading into the game, he was like, you can't lose to that organization 3 times. You sure about that one, Aaron? You sure about that one, Aaron? And I find it just hilarious how he was like, oh, I'm Chicago's daddy. But,
Yeah.
Detroit is a whole other story.
Yeah, that was, bro. And I feel like what kind of makes it this like the more funny is that Aaron might not be a Packer next year, so his last game as a Packer is a loss to the Detroit Lions. Nothing to disrespect the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were very good this year. We were high on them. We just did not think they would have the season they would have in terms of success. But to think about that, the Detroit Lions sent Aaron Rodgers packing. That's what it's like up there. And for a bunch of Aaron Rodgers haters, they loved every second of that. The Lions obviously loved every second of it, but man, that one's good. It was a good moment, and I think everyone loves Jamal Williams because I think his player intro was, I mean, for anyone that doesn't watch anime, you wouldn't understand Jamal Williams is like when they say Jared Goff, Cal, where it's him. He mentioned a hidden village in a certain anime. If you know, you know, but that it was definitely funny. But if I had to pick a play out of all of our nominees, I'm still going with Mac Jones, bro. That play with Chandler Jones just stiff arming him, a former Patriot, stiff arming the franchise quarterback for the Patriots, who was just having a terrible year, and it got even worse. To me, that was the funniest moment of the year.
Yeah, and with Josh McDaniels on the other side, so the mentor going versus the mentoree in that game, I think it is a strong nominee for funniest moment of the year. This one, I'll go with that one. It's not my favorite. I'm a little more split decision on this one, but I'm fine with it. I don't have any like real arguments for any of the other ones, other than I just thought they were really funny.
Well, we
So
also have some. Do have one comment here. We have Drunk said funniest moment was Josh Johnson wanting no part of the NFC Championship game.
okay.
I mean that technically that is true because he didn't play well, But
I
then he
mean,
also
yeah,
got
but he
knocked
did
out.
suffer a concussion.
Yeah, he eventually did get knocked out. So that
He
that
was
is one.
physically removed from the game. So
He
I
was
mean,
physically removed, so it's kind of hard to say anything about that. But no,
uh,
those are good, but we still got more awards. So
yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is the NFL Game of the Year. And this has some really strong contenders. We'll start off with one that I can still picture watching this on my couch, having the red zone on, and the red zone just not removing this game because it like every single second something insane was happening, which was the Vikings week. I have it here. The Vikings week 10 game, I believe it was, that was nominated for our first nominee for play of the game of the year. It was when the Minnesota Vikings traveled to Buffalo, won 33-30 in overtime. But if anybody remembers, the Buffalo Bills stopped the Vikings on fourth down, in fourth and goal, not even fourth down, on fourth and goal, in a sequence that had the center of the Vikings step on Kirk Cousins' shoe before he could get a pass off, and then caused him to fall down. He threw a little short, flat out pass to Dalvin Cook, who let it bounce off his face mask, but the Bills were called for offside, so that play was restarted, and the Vikings still could not score. The Bills get the ball back at the 1 yard line. First play of that series, fumbled snap exchange between Josh Allen and the center. The Vikings recover the football in the end zone to tie or to take the lead by 3. And then the Bills came back, tied it up, and then we went to overtime. The Vikings scored a field goal, and Josh Allen throws an interception.
I mean, bro, that game was still nuts. I mean, like you said, I could still picture it because I remember texting each other and we were just like, bro, you saw this? It's like, oh my God, what a catch. And it was like another red zone turnover. Like everything you want to see in a football game was in that game where you had two good teams. But also, people have to remember the Vikings, they were down by what, 17 or 14? They were down by 2 scores.
Yeah.
And they started coming back. It all kicked off with that Dalvin Cook run for like 80 yards. And for any fantasy owners who had players in this game, it was like, thank you. Like, this is what I need. I needed a shootout. I needed to collect the points. It was honestly that was such a good game. Such a good game. Such man, but
No, an insane game. And it has a nominee for one of our Play of the Year awards that we're going to get to later, as Kirk Cousins on 4th and 18 just said, F it, Justin's down there somewhere.
somewhere.
And in between double coverage, Justin Jefferson made an absolutely spectacular catch. I don't want to give too much away, as we're going to discuss it in a little bit for our Play of the Year moment, but that's what adds for this game, having and being a nominee for Game of the Year, is the fact that it had that play in it and just everything that happened in it, with the fact that Kirk Cousins got stepped on by a center, the fact that Cook dropped a pass that would have been a walk-in touchdown, the
So
fact
many
that
things happen.
the botch snap happened with 41 seconds left, and the Bills got the ball back and were able to score 3 to send the game into overtime. Josh Allen throwing his second terrible interception, and then to Patrick Peterson, which at the time the Vikings were on that were on the plane after the game with all the chains on,
Oh
and they
yeah.
had the Patrick Peterson one. So that's what added to everything that was going on. And at the time, I believe the Vikings only had one loss, and it was like, oh my God, they traveled to Buffalo and beat them. Like, I get it was a crazy game, but they still went on the road and beat the Bills. And that's at the time when we were like, dude, the Bills might be unbelievable. So it was honestly a turning point in the NFL season, because afterwards, I think we all started to look at the Vikings a little bit more closely, like they're 10-1, but how good are you guys? Like, especially after
Yeah.
they just basically
Even the Bills
pulled
too.
that one out.
Even the Bills, we were looking at like, hey, Josh, are you
Because
okay?
those were bad interceptions.
They were bad.
Bad interceptions in that game that Josh Allen threw.
But it was definitely a great game. And even the next 2 games that we have, bro, those are still memorable games.
And honestly, there's a theme in all of them, because they all include comebacks, and especially late comebacks. So let's move on to our second nominee here, as we will go with the Week 2 matchup of the Miami Dolphins traveling to Baltimore, and the Dolphins erasing a 21-point lead or 21-point deficit to come back on the road to beat the Baltimore Ravens 42-38. And I mean, this was honestly game of the years of the comeback, and because of all of or game of the year nominees because of the comeback and because of all the things that happened in the game. I didn't even remember until I started looking back at the game. The first play of the game was
A kickoff return.
103-yard return, Devin Duvernay. Like, I completely forgot that happened.
Yep. And I think what also makes me like proud that this was a game of the year, for anyone that remembers me and Myles play fantasy together. In this game, I started Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Jalen Waddle. I won the week just with those three in my starting lineup, and I was like, "Oh my god, like this is amazing." Jalen Waddle went off; went nuts. Tyreek Hill went nuts in that game too, after like being out for like what I think like for a couple of series. I think he was only gone for like a series and like a couple of plays, but he eventually came back and was going crazy. Tua had arguably the best game of his career, we can say up to this date, statistic wise.
Tua had
That
469 yards with 6 touchdowns in the game.
yeah, like I,
469 passing yards.
yeah. So it's kind of hard to say that's not Tua's best game of his career. And Lamar had one of the best runs we saw all year.
Yep.
So it was such a
He
great
broke it.
game.
It looked like MVP Lamar. And to your point about
Yep.
Waddle and Hill, they both combined for 11 receptions. So between the two, there was 22 receptions between the two of them. 190 yards with 2 touchdowns for Tyreek Hill on 13 targets. 171 yards for Waddle and 2 touchdowns on 19 targets.
Yep.
And that's not even including probably the best touchdown catch that we had, which was the
Gesicki.
Gesicki one in the back of the end zone where he did that extraterrestrial stuff where he was just like, all right, I'm going to not only be the tallest guy anywhere near this ball, but I'm also going to jump higher than all three of you put together.
Yeah, no, that play showed Mike Gesicki's athleticism as a tight end, which is something we thought the Dolphins would utilize more. But that's a different topic for a different day. But that was one great game. It was a great game. We thought Baltimore was going to run away with this with one of the probably ugliest games of the year. But then Miami was able to string together a couple of scoring drives, get a couple of stops, and next thing you know, it was a one-score ball game. Then it was tied.
Yeah,
So
and remember,
much
even
credit
Bateman
to the
had a
Dolphins.
75-yard slant on Xavier, and me and you were texting like, "Oh my goodness, what happened to Xavier?"
Yeah, so a lot of things were going on. This was hands down a great, great game, and I mean, I kind of spoiled the NFL fans because you already had that game in week 2, so it was like, oh my god, what's next?
Yeah, and it was just building up the Dolphins' hype train. Going into the season, we were very excited about McDaniel and the pairing of him with Tua, and then pairing Tua, Waddle, and Hill all together. And I mean, at that point, you could tell me that they could do no wrong. I thought that was going to be the best offense we ever got. I thought they were going to be able to score 30 points just by pulling up to the game. I didn't think there was going to be any problems. But silly, silly, silly Dolphins fan I am. But that is our second nominee for game of the year. As we move on, our last one will be the the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another overtime game that saw a huge comeback by the Jacksonville Jaguars in this one. And it it honestly, this game, just like the last one that we talked about, it kind of predicted the future because one of the key plays, the game-winning play, was Dak throwing an interception. And if you listened to us last week or the last couple of weeks talking about the Cowboys, Dak throwing an interception has been a topic of conversation. But the Jaguars were down 27-10 in this game, and then actually took the lead in the fourth quarter. The Cowboys came back with a touchdown to tie it up, and then the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence came back down and got a field goal to send the game into overtime. And then in overtime, the Jags go 3-and-out real quick, and you're like, all right, the Cowboys will take care of business. They've been the better team. They just had a bad second half. Nope. Dak Prescott throws a pass, gets deflected. Rashawn Jenkins, the University of Miami guy, takes it all the way back to the house for the game-winning touchdown in overtime.
Man, that was it was a great game. Great game. Credit to Dallas because they showed at the beginning they're their firepower. And this was right before they were going to play the Eagles. So it was like, okay, you want this win so that way you can go into that Eagles game saying you're not here to joke around. Like, you can show the Eagles we're better than you, and this could be essentially our year, which eventually didn't happen. But man, for Dak to throw a game losing pick to the Jags, and like you said, it was deflected. That's what people say. It was deflected, but still, why would you throw the ball to Noah Brown when you have CeeDee Lamb as your one, or Schultz? You have Schultz. Schultz is a good tight end. Some people could justify you targeting Schultz. But man, that play was just, it was bad, but also I think it was kind of like in true Dallas Cowboys fashion, kind of like how we just said, like Dallas for basically our lives that we've been alive, they just choke. And
Which
that play kind of just
this
summarized it.
this summarizes this for the Cowboys as a whole, especially what we've seen the last 2 years, and then for the Jaguars, it kind of like sparked that optimism. We saw them come back from a huge deficit in their playoff game. I was reading up on this game. Did you know that this game was their first win against an NFC team since the 2018 season opener? The Jags had lost 20 straight
Against the
games to the
Packers,
NFC.
right?
This says against the Giants.
Oh.
It was opening game against the Giants.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in New York against Saquon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was Saints at Packers in Jacksonville because there was a hurricane. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. This was 2018 against the Giants. They had been on a 20-game losing streak to the NFC, and I mean, in this game, Lawrence went for 318 yards, 4 touchdowns. ETN ran for 103 yards. This is really where you're like, I mean, they have all the pieces. Is it crazy that they win the AFC South?
Honestly, no. I mean, man, that's tough. But I would have to really think about that. The one thing I will say, all these games, like you said, they have the comeback story, so it's there. But if I had to pick one, bro, I gotta go with the Bills Vikings game, just because we saw everything. We saw great defensive plays, we saw bad defensive plays, and we saw great offensive plays from both sides. And just for the game to go to overtime, that's what I feel like gave it the notch above both the Dolphins, Ravens, and the Jags, Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm gonna go same. And honestly, the deciding factor for me for game of the year is that not only was the Vikings Bills game, as I mentioned, I think that the Jefferson catch of that game is a strong nominee for catch of the year that we're gonna get to in this segment. And also, because we've seen botched snaps before and teams recover it, but I've never seen it in that situation where they're literally at their own 1 yard line and the botched snap is recovered by the defense for the winning touchdown, or not for the winning touchdown, but for at least a go-ahead touchdown. And at the time, I thought it was a winning touchdown because there was only 41 seconds left. And like you said, not only did it go to overtime, but because the Bills had thrown up all over themselves, they had to have this game-setting touchdown. So
Yeah.
I think Bills at or Vikings at Bills is our NFL game of the year here on 305 takes, and we got some more to get to here as we move on. But again, let's give a shout out to our sponsor here at 305 takes, E2G Sports. Head over to E2Gsports.com for all of your latest news breaking for the NFL, MLB, some new NFL draft up on the website. So go over to E2Gsports.com and check it out. And we have our last category here, and this is one that we've been teasing with the discussion that we just had for game of the year, but we'll go with catch of the year. And this was one that me and Angel, we had some nominations. We threw a couple of them out there, and we decided that it was best for us to go ahead and nominate these 3. So without further ado, our first nominee is the one that we have been talking about, the Justin Jefferson one-handed catch and double coverage against the Bills on 4th and 18. And honestly, that's the thing that makes it even more incredible for me, is that it was 4th and 18. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was fourth
like
and 18. If they don't catch it, that game's over. We don't
they
have a
lose.
nominee for the game of the year, or our game of the year choice goes out of the window. So I definitely think that this Jefferson catch was amazing, and it adds my favorite factor of F it. Someone's down there somewhere.
Yep, your Ryan Fitzpatrick motto. Someone's got him down there. Just go.
Just make a play. I threw the ball up there. Just go make a play.
We have that one, and then we also have one where it was very early. It was a Thursday night game. For anyone that doesn't have Prime Video, you might not have seen it on real time, but it was on Twitter, Instagram, every social media platform you could think of in seconds. And we have George Pickens almost replicating Odell Beckham Jr.'s original catch, but it wasn't a touchdown. It was on the side, near the sideline, and it was unbelievable. The acrobatic he was doing, just going off to his right to snag that ball in
And
against
the
a
body
division
control
rival.
that one took, and the fact that he was helping out his fellow rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett in a game where that they were struggling to move the ball. It was an unbelievable catch, and like just the amount of,
It was
like I said,
difficult.
body control and just muscle strength to be able to snatch it with one hand like that, secure it going to the ground. Because the Odell catch, he had his body, like his shoulder pads in his chest to secure the ball and make
Yeah.
sure it didn't move, and he completed the catch. This was going to the ground, so he needed to
Yep.
use his own strength to make sure that ball didn't move. Because unless you're Devonta Smith, they're very quick to overturn catches into not catches.
Yep. I mean, we have that one, but then we also have one more catch that we have to talk about, because it's not the one-handed snag; it's the situation in which this play happened, which is.
And this was a catch. Before we get to it, before we announce it, this was a catch that me and Angel had trouble slotting on if it should be in the play of the year category, if it should be in the catch of the year category.
Which
Go ahead, get to it. Go ahead to get to it, and I'll give you my argument why I said catch of the year.
So for anyone that doesn't remember, there was a game of not the best teams. We have the Atlanta Falcons against the Carolina Panthers. And a certain receiver who everyone thought was going to get traded, didn't get traded, DJ Moore, caught a game-tying touchdown with expiring seconds left on the clock. PJ Walker just threw it. He knew
from
it
his
was like,
own 35-yard line.
Yep. He was like, all right, it has to get to the end zone. There's no way. If it doesn't get to the end zone, we lose. DJ Moore catches the ball. They get the touchdown. They're a point away now from doing it. So a PAT and the game is tied. They can go to overtime. But DJ Moore's celebration did cost the Panthers.
Not even. I think if they hit the extra point, they win.
Oh, no, they lost the game. Nah. But
because they missed the extra point.
Yeah, well, but essentially at the end of the game, the Panthers did lose the game, and potentially you could say it was DJ Moore's fault, but I also don't blame DJ Moore because of the play he just made. And it was truly incredible play. He caught the Hail Mary touchdown
with two defenders chasing him.
No, they're not the best defenders, but still, the situation in which I was in, this is the last play of the game.
Yeah, it was crazy. And the fact that it was PJ Walker throwing it to him, they had been through the turbulent quarterback situation again for the third straight year, essentially. And PJ Walker, who, we've documented his story of playing in the AAF and then coming back to the NFL, getting a shot with his former college coach and Matt Rule, and he just uncorks when he scrambles to his left a little bit, buys himself some time, and from his own 35, the entire way in the air, right into the breadbasket of DJ Moore. And it should have been a conference win for them. And, this is a team that was maybe just a couple of games away from actually winning that division. So
yeah, you could probably say like 2 games away,
So even though that they were 2 bad teams to watch, like they because of the division that they played in, Carolina was playing in meaningful games down the stretch. And if they could have pulled this one out, it would have been huge for them. But the only reason I couldn't agree with nominating it for play of the year is because, unfortunately, I don't necessarily agree with the penalty, because it is a guy celebrating. And when you have a play like that, I think you should give them some leeway, unless they're just, being absolutely obscene. But he takes off his helmet after the catch. The referees call a 15-yard penalty, and the kicker comes out, misses the extra point, sends the game to overtime, and the Falcons are unfortunately able to win the game. That's the only reason he couldn't nominate it for play of the year because of what happened following the penalty, but it was an unbelievable catch considering circumstances. The only thing the defense was probably told going onto the field is don't let anybody behind you. Keep everything in front of you. Like
Yeah, keep everything in front of you. And if not, they know it's like, hey, there might be one guy going to the end zone, so at least like two of you go over there. The rest can handle everything, but it didn't work out. But I think we got to get to voting.
Perfect nomination. Yeah,
voting time. Catch of the year. I'm just gonna say, I'm just putting my vote strictly because of situation. I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson just because it was 4th and 18. It kept the drive alive. And more importantly, the Vikings did end up winning the game.
Yeah,
they ended up winning the game. So that's why I put that as catch of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Jefferson one. It was my favorite one. It was the one that I remember texting everybody, like, how is this even possible? Like, I don't even think he ever saw the ball at any point. Like, I think he just kind of figured out in midair where he thought the ball was going to land and just kind of stuck his hand out there. And I don't get how it didn't move. I don't get how it didn't touch the ground, but it really didn't do any of that. It's not even because, like, the Vikings just got up and snapped the ball quickly. Like, no, it was a clean catch.
It was, and also for any like bonus points, if you had Jefferson on fantasy like me, it was like, oh, thank you so much. Like I need this. Like, give me as many points as you possibly can.
Yeah, because he ended up finishing that game with 180 receiving yards.
Yeah, I think he ended the day with like 30 points. I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. Like, I was writing on him, but I mean, those are our NFL awards, and I have to be honest, I am proud of us because we did, like, for anyone that doesn't know, we generally did do our homework. We looked at like saying, all right, what are some plays that some people might have forgotten, or games, or even potentially moments? And it's still kind of hard because a lot of it is coming from essentially like one team. The Vikings are in a lot of these. They're in for game of the year, catch of the year. Then you have play of the year. You have the Patriots funniest moment. The Patriots are in it again. So it's kind of hard, but essentially there are a couple of teams that were just, their seasons were so memorable for both sides, good and bad.
Yeah, and it just honestly, like, it's good to look back because we get so caught up in the week to week, and especially like we get caught up in the week to week, and then just because you won the last week, and if you look bad the next week coming up, we're going to be like, all right, we don't know what to make of this team. Like, which team are we going to see? So having like the whole season to look back and capture the moments is pretty cool.
Yep, and I mean it is definitely good, and I do think we do have to talk a little bit because, guys, when me and Myles left on Monday, we do want to admit we did not expect the news that was going to happen Wednesday morning with Tom Brady, him announcing his retirement again. For anyone that followed us before, we already said what we've said about Tom Brady and his retirement prior to last season when he retired. We gave him thanks for the competitor he was and everything, but we still got.
I don't know if I believe this one.
You don't know if you believe it?
Yeah,
but we'll see. We'll definitely see. Once it hits week 1 and we don't see Tom Brady dress up in uniform, we'll say, okay, thanks again. That's when we'll give our thanks.
And it still only takes an injury away from your next opportunity opening it up. So as long as he stays in playing shape, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him even post week 1.
Yep, that definitely could be. But we even still have some other news that we kind of have to break down because we have NFL head coach musical chairs.
Yeah. Yeah, we got 2 teams that made a decision, or 3 teams that made a decision this week, as we have Matt Rule, the Carolina Panthers replacing Matt Rule with Frank Reich, and really replacing Steve Wilkes, the interim coach that had them looking really good and competitive down the stretch after the Matt Rule filing. So we have the Carolina Panthers filling their position. We have the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans basically making or having the decision announced by the NFL newsbreakers essentially a couple of seconds in between the other. And depending on who you get your news from, whether it's Adam Schefter of ESPN, who says the Broncos' decision to announce Sean Payton as their head coach right after he reported that the Houston Texans were making DeMarco Ryans their head coach, had nothing to do with the other. If you get your news from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, he says that the Broncos were putting on a full court press up until the day the Texans made their official hire of D'Amico Ryan. So there is some conflicting reports on who exactly the Broncos' first choice for their head coaching candidacy was, but they have officially made the decision. It is Sean Payton, and the Houston Texans have as well gone ahead and named 49ers defense coordinator DeMarc Ryans their head coach. So out of those three moves that are official, which one do you like the most between head coaching fit and organization?
For head coaching fit, I really like the D'Amico Ryans one with the Texans because I do think he generally has a chance to run the team where he's going to start fresh. There's a very good chance they draft a quarterback. So he's going to have C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, whoever is the quarterback that they end up drafting, and he's going to have time to really build the team. So I think the fit is good. He played with them. He knows what the city of Houston wants to win because they've just been a bad team for so long. He wants to at least bring some glory to them and at least make them a true contender. And the one that I least like personally is Frank Wright, just because I felt Steve Wilkes did enough to earn that job as the head coach in Carolina. If Steve Wilkes would have got that job, I would have said Sean Payton just because the expectations that he's going to have with Denver. Because Denver coming into this year, they had Super Bowl aspirations. You brought in Russell Wilson. You gave him his contract extension. You did a lot of stuff to, build your team. You built the defense. You built the offense. You have weapons. Like you had everything Russell Wilson wanted, and it all went down the drain really fast. So that was, to me, out of if Steve Wilkes was hired as was hired as a Carolina Panthers head coach, I would say Sean Payton's the one I least like, but I will say out of all of them, the best fit, I think D'Amico Ryans with the Texans.
The only thing that I have against the D'Amico Ryans thing is that I just think it's going to take, even though that I like him as a coach, and I think he has, I think he has the people management skill to really build something sustainable in Houston. I just think it's going to take a couple of years for them to really get going, considering how bad they've been the last couple of years, and that the Deshaun thing really, the whole Deshaun Watson situation really kind of wrecked their franchise. But they do have draft capital coming back. They have Browns first round picks coming in. They have their own first round pick. So there is definitely the outlines of a solid team coming up, just depending on what they do with that draft capital. So I do think that is the best fit. You get a former player that has familiarity with the organization in to the building. So I do like that. And I thought he was really good this last year for San Francisco. Obviously, he had a really talented team, but I thought they actually played really smart. Like, for example, them deciding to just blow up Ezekiel Elliott on that play where the Cowboys lined him up at center. I think that was, him kind of coaching on his feet, because I don't think anybody was really prepared for what the Cowboys were doing there. And then, honestly, the one I don't like, I do agree with you that I think Steve Wilkes definitely deserved the job in Carolina. I don't necessarily blame them for going for Frank Reich, because they are still, for the third straight year, looking for a franchise quarterback. And not only is Frank Reich a former NFL quarterback, he threw the first touchdown pass in Carolina Panthers history. So there is the connection there. And he's used to either having to go year to year with quarterbacks, building an offense around a veteran quarterback that he might not be familiar with. So I do think that makes sense as far as, getting a former quarterback, trying to have him implement an offense around a rookie if you select one, or if you trade for a veteran. The one I honestly don't like is the Sean Payton one. And I think it's surprising to me, because I actually really do like Sean Payton as an NFL head coach. I mean, he's the most accomplished out of any of these guys. He coached the Saints for 15 seasons from 2006 to 2021, won a Super Bowl, won 7 NFC South Division titles, and was 152-89 in the regular season. So it's not like he doesn't have experience in different type of situations, and he has experience putting together explosive offenses. My thing is that they just paid a steep price for this quarterback coach marriage. They traded all those picks and 3 NFL players for Russell Wilson. They are now trading an additional first round pick that they just acquired in the Bradley Chubb trade to acquire Sean Payton from the New Orleans Saints, because he was still under contract. So you're basically all in, like
Yep.
all in. And
The expectations he has there are it's Super Bowl or bust.
and I can specifically remember maybe 2 games where, all right, if you have an actual experienced head coach that's not, trying to figure it out as he goes, as I think we all agree Nathaniel Hackett was doing last year, that the Broncos win. But I don't think it makes them any more dominant, or like if they would have won those 2 games and made the playoffs, I don't think any of us were like, oh, this is a team you need to watch out for in the playoffs. And I think we were rightfully kind of high on them last year. I was, trying to pump the brakes a little bit because I've been worried about Russell Wilson and his decline in play, but there was talent all over the roster. But now you're another season removed. You're going to have to re-sign some players and make tough decisions against the cap, as we saw they had to do with Bradley Chubb. And now you have an aging roster with an aging quarterback and a coach that's been out of the game.
And also, the coach is getting quarterback money. Sean Payton reportedly is getting close to 17 to 20 million a year. So he's within that price range. And now you have to also deal with the reigning AFC champs, the Chiefs. You're going to have to deal with the Chargers, who just got Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, which I thought was actually a very good move by the Chargers. I like that a lot for them. And then, you also have the Raiders. We got to see what the Raiders do this offseason in terms of quarterback after the whole Derek Carr situation, and still what other additions they'd make. But now, that's still not – we're not even going to mention the Bengals, the Bills, Ravens. There's a lot of good teams in the AFC that we still haven't mentioned that could very much beat the Broncos in any given Sunday. So –
and if you just look at the whole process and how it played out. So, like I said, you had the conflicting reports between Schefter and Ian Rappaport when the news first broke. It seemed like the Broncos wanted DeMeco Ryans. He kind of told them that he was leaning towards Houston. So what did Denver do? Denver flew out to Michigan to meet with John Harbaugh, like confirmed. There was never an offer given. So they just met with him for the second time in this coaching process. The Washington Post reported that Sean Payton was fearing that there was a power struggle in this new Denver ownership that just came into power last year. Payton went on the NFC or the Fox pregame show before the NFC Championship game. He denied that, but then reiterated that he was not close to deciding on if he would come back to coach because he had this Fox job already. And after he had his first meeting with the Broncos, he met with the Panthers and, according to him, interviewed with the Cardinals for 8 hours. So this was a guy that was still playing his cards, and the Broncos were playing their cards, which isn't necessarily the worst thing because you don't want to, like they say, you want to have every stone, leave no stone left unturned. But, did they settle here? And essentially, this is what this, and so they settled on the guy they had to trade picks for.
Yep. So they traded a second just to get Sean Payton and a fourth.
Essentially, to acquire Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, they gave up 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, their top pass rusher. Like what? What are we doing here?
And then you could say Drew Lock. So the Drew Lock part, you can say
it evens out. Fine. Okay, whatever. That was a lost
cause. But then still, that's a lot of picks. You know how many players you essentially could have built upon?
3 first-round picks, and that. Between the 3 first-round picks and the 3 second-round picks, you're talking about guys that your fan base will be excited when you draft them. Starters. Even if they're offensive linemen, you're like, oh, we got a first round. We drafted this kid in the second round. He should help us out at guard. Whatever the case may be.
Or potentially a quarterback.
Yeah, to replace the old guy.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to unpack there for the Broncos, and we're gonna see. Because next year if we have our award show, we might have to go biggest disappointment. The Broncos might be there. If not, it might be Russell Wilson, one of the two. So it's definitely going to be there. But the NFL, we got to give credit to the NFL.
It keeps us entertained, man, for sure.
Keeps us entertained,
and we'll have even more even after the Super Bowl because I assure you saw the Derek Carr joke about him never being this hot in Vegas.
Definitely not going to be here next year.
And he's got to be traded before the league season even starts. So we'll have news basically cooking up from the NFL year round. We still have 2 NFL head coaching vacancies with the Arizona Cardinals and the Indianapolis Colts. And oh my God, please, Jim Irsay, please make Jeff Saturday the permanent coach. Oh my God, please, I dare you. I dare you, brother. I dare you. You won't.
If he does, like I'll just be like, I'm calling them. And it's like, hey, that guy Quentin Nelson, I'll give you a fourth.
You won't. You won't. You won't do it. But
But we'll see.
that's our episode for today. As always, thank you for joining us here at 305 Takes. We're live every Monday at 2:30, which will be the next time we will speak to you guys. We are live on YouTube every Friday at 3 p.m. And as always, until next time, peace.